Alright, now on to some information about the origin of the current swine flu and how it relates to the 1918 pandemic. Now this article is on cdc.gov, so you might want to trust some of this information. The article is by Jeffrey K. Taubenberger. It's called History, 1918 Influenza, the Mother of All Pandemics. Now, who is Jeffrey K. Taubenberger? Says, Armed Forces Institute of Pathology, Rockford, Maryland. So he works for the Army's Institute of Pathology. Now, the article goes on to say that in 1919, the Spanish flu, which was a form of the H1N1 virus, killed about 50 million people worldwide. And it says that it was similar to previous viruses before that in the 1800s, but nothing was quite this bad. But they didn't really know a whole lot about it. It says it was a drifted H1N1 virus. So, what did they want to do to find out information about it? It says in 1995, a scientific team identified archival influenza autopsy materials collected in the autumn of 1918 and began the slow process of sequencing small viral RNA fragments. So, in 1995, they went out of their way to go dig up this frozen body that was frozen in permafrost, extract some of the 1918 flu virus, and start decoding it, start finding out what its genome is. Now, a member of the message board above Top Secret had this analysis, which I thought was really good. Resurrecting the 1918 plague to study it was about as smart as bringing King Kong back to New York or resurrecting the dinosaurs in Jurassic Park. I thought real scientists were smarter than those in fiction, but apparently not. I think one poster earlier mentioned that a lot of microbiologists have gone missing or have been killed lately. This whole scenario makes me think of a typical James Bond plot. Dr. Evil gathers up microbiologists around the world to help him resurrect the 1918 influenza under the guise of real research, then succeeds in killing them off one by one, so he only knows the truth of what happened. One of the microbiologists gets as far as calling into a radio show to warn the world about what is happening in the Ukrainian facility, but he gets sent to a mental facility. 2 months later, the H1N1 flu and unknown pneumonic plague erupts in Ukraine. Now he's talking about Joseph Mosh, who called into the radio station. This article showed Joseph Mosh, Mossad microbiologist. He says that swine flu vaccine is a bioweapon. Now, you may not know, but Mossad is basically the Israeli CIA, and there's a lot of proof here that this guy says he is who he says he is. The article says, today, the mainstream media are not talking about this case anymore. Yesterday, they wanted us to believe that Joseph Mosh was a nutcase and a terrorist, arresting him for threatening to bomb the White House. Interesting detail about his arrest was that he seemed to be immune to 5 cans of tear gas and 5 gallons of law enforcement-grade pepper spray they pumped into his face. He very calmly remained in his car, as the video footage of this arrest shows. You can see his face here is red as hell. He stayed in his car after 5 gallons, so obviously he is really Mossad. Professor Mosh had called into a live radio show by Dr. A. Truatt, broadcast on Republic Broadcasting, claiming to be a microbiologist who wanted to supply evidence to the state's attorney regarding tainted H1N1 swine flu vaccines being produced by Baxter Biopharma Solutions. He said that Baxter's Ukrainian laboratory was in fact producing a bioweapon disguised as a vaccine. He claimed that the vaccine contained an adjuvant designed to weaken the immune system and replicated RNA from the virus responsible for the 1918 pandemic swine flu, causing global sickness and death. Sources tell us that Joseph Mosh made no threat against the president or the White House. He did not mention any bomb attack. So what happened is this guy called into the radio station saying that Baxter Laboratories was in the Ukrainian laboratories was producing tainted vaccinations that were going to spread this flu instead of help it. Now, after he called in, The FBI claims that he made a bomb threat to the White House. So what do? It says that the FBI and the bomb squad prevented him from reaching the Israeli embassy. They used microwave weapons to stop his car and make it so he couldn't call anybody while he was in his car. And this article right here says that he was let back to Israel, but I've found further articles showing that he's in a mental institution in California right now. The article goes on to say, does this sound like an insane conspiracy theory? Sure it does. Due to the scarcity and anonymity of the sources, we would dismiss it as exactly that if it weren't for some uncomfortable facts. Baxter Pharmaceutical has been caught red-handed in spreading a live, genetically engineered H1N1 bird flu vaccine as a lethal biological weapon all over the world, destined to be used for human vaccination. This happened a couple months ago, and only luck prevented a global catastrophe of epic proportions. Baxter International Inc. had mixed live genetically engineered avian flu viruses and vaccine material shipped to 18 countries. Only by sheer luck, a Czech laboratory decided to test the vaccine on a dozen ferrets, which all died in days. The World Health Organization was notified of and catastrophe was averted. This was clearly a deliberate act on Baxter's part because they adhered to BS3, Biosafety Level 3. Baxter admitted a mistake. Such monumental screw-ups are totally impossible at that level. Many safety systems would need to be sabotaged. Many personnel would need to be bribed. It simply can't be done without direction from the inside. This is not to send out the wrong. They did not send out the wrong file. They produced dozens of gallons of biological weapon agent, genetically engineered live bird flu virus, then sent out as a vaccine. Now, you can see this report is true right here. Viral pandemic H1 flu threat. Baxter contaminates European lab by error. They were caught doing this. Not only that, but before that, as you can see on this MSNBC article, they were caught before that. This time they were caught producing HIV-infected vaccines, and not only did they produce them, but once they were caught, they took them off the U.S. market and distributed them to China and Europe.
Rat of the week. Why is Bayer Corporation the rat of the week? Internal documents show that after this company positively, absolutely knew that they had a medication that was infected with the AIDS virus, they took the product off the market in the U.S. and then they dumped it in France, Europe, Asia, and Latin America. The medicine's called Factorate. It was an injection medicine that was used for hemophiliacs, mostly children. Children had been born with an incurable disease. Hold on, Mike. So hold on. So you're telling me that Bayer knew that this drug was infected with the AIDS virus. They yanked it from the market in America, and then they dumped it in markets overseas? They had to figure out a way, Joe, to make a profit on a product that they could not sell in America. So they made a huge profit. They dropped the product in Japan, Spain, and France. By the way, Joe, government officials in France that allowed that to happen actually had to go to prison for it. In America, not one corporate executive for this company has been indicted or even criminally investigated by our Justice Department. Why not? You're telling me that these people...
Why not? Maybe is it that our Justice Department is owned by these pharmaceutical companies, the New World Order and the Illuminati, and they're all working toward the same agenda?